Call this meeting to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hogue.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Blackwell.
Here.
Von Brenthorst. Here.
Okay, we're missing two people tonight. Marty is in Moscow, if I understand correctly, has a prior commitment, and Mr. Hahn is under the weather. And so he said he might be feeling better, and I told him that he might be sitting by the back door too. So he chose not to be here tonight. So if we could have the invocation from Reverend Wes Higgins, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Teresa.
Our Father in heaven, our loving God, we come before you, great God, just asking your guidance and direction as the City Council of Weiser gets together to decide things for the public, for the good of the town and the community. We just ask, Father, that you give them the wisdom, the discernment, the understanding, Father, that they need in all of these areas. And we just ask your blessing now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any commission reports?
Yes.
That's surprising.
We're always surprised. Okay. I'll start with, I got this one.
Oh, you get that
I can speak into both.
one. Okay.
The airport committee did get together and we talked about, they talked about the rezone that has been come to them about trying to fix the zoning and error that happened back in the 70s. And so that group got together just because they really wanted to make sure that they were unified in how they presented themselves, and they held their own vote. You'll get a report on that, I'm sure, from P&Z when they take it up to them. And then they started talking about the rest of their 10-year plan. So they have 2 years left on this 10-year plan. They've done all of the projects that are on there, save one, which is the one that they'll start next year, and that is the repaving of the runway. The taxiway is going to be a fairly big project for them, but it's the last thing on their 10-year plan, and so they've gotten their funds ready for that, and then after that they'll have to do their next 10-year plan. They've been able to check everything else off of their list, which is really exciting. Yeah. That's the airport. I'll talk about the library real quick as well. So the library had 4,304 books checked out, 4,476 people walked through the doors. We did have a movie night. I guess that's more this month than it was last month, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. They counted about 168 people in attendance. They have added 116 new books, 80 of them for kids. So if you've got kids, make sure you take them to go check out those new books. They had 39 kids attend STEM night, and a very successful book sale. I don't know the grand total, but that's there for you. So, library is always doing great, busy things. So please check them out if you are interested.
Super. Okay. Any other commission reports? Okay. Do we have any committee reports?
Yes. So, our design review committee, we have been working hard. We're going to meet again next week. We have been able to work through some of those design requirements that we are hoping to present to you guys regarding our commercial zoning. And just so that as we get more and more requests of development coming in, we will have guidelines for those businesses and developments that we want. We're trying really hard to work in congruence, or in, is that the right word? Oh, conjunction, that's the word. You're so good. Conjunction with what P&Z is going through as well, and then some of the things that we do here as well. We're just trying to make it so that we have a plan moving forward. I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing what direction we want and how we want things to grow and develop. So great work there, and hopefully we'll have even more for you next month.
Super. Super. And you guys are doing great work. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Department reports. Natasha.
Council, this is the City of Weiser Department reports for June 2024. The Weiser Police Department had 23 adult arrests, 12 being misdemeanor, 11 being felony. The juveniles have behaved themselves again. Citations, there were 49, 10 misdemeanor, 39 infractions. Calls for service were 438. Case reports was 35, felony 11, misdemeanor 12, accident 6, and incident 6. The City of Weiser Animal Control, there were 20 dog complaints, 9 impounded, 5 returned to owner, 4 adopted, 4 transferred out. There were 14 cat complaints, 11 were impounded, 6 were adopted, and the TNR program, there were 9 this month. City of Weiser ordinance complaints, there were 3 weeds, 3 abandoned vehicles, 3 parking, 1 camper occupancy. The wastewater department, June flow for 2023 was $36,130,000. The June flow for 2024 was $34,080,000. And June's daily average was $1,140,000. The wastewater department ran the belt press and hauled 83 tons of biosolids to Clay Peak. They jetted 3,000 feet of sewer line on the east side of town. They sprayed weeds around plant and lift stations. The water department's water production for June of 2023 was 29.23 million gallons. June of 2024 was 33.5 million gallons. The water department installed new service at 703 East Commercial, painted 98 fire hydrants north of Pioneer Road, switched to summer settling pond, also sprayed weeds at the water plant. The electric department's power consumption for May of 2023 was 3,969,511 kilowatts. May of 2024 was 3,991,878 kilowatts. The electric department continued work at the subdivisions. They installed 8 power boards for Fiddle Festival at City Park, continued clearing trees from high voltage lines, called for a blown fuse at the post office, which ended up being a squirrel. The street department graded travel valleys, mowed city properties, patched various potholes, set up and tear down for the Fiddle Festival, began the removal of the playground equipment at Memorial Park, and miscellaneous work in the shop. The rec department, the Weiser Dolphins hosted 2 swim meets in June, with school starting August 14th. The pool will be closed August 13th. Seems like it gets earlier and earlier every year. Co-ed softball signups are complete with 5 teams participating. Currently taking registration for tackle football. Also currently taking registrations for fall soccer. In the building department, there were 6 building permits issued this month, 2 to single-family dwellings, 1 commercial building, 1 accessory building, 1 sign, and 1 dwelling alteration or addition. Mayor and City Council, that concludes your department reports for June 2024.
You've got to do something about the suicidal schools.
They have a tendency to do bad things. There's a few birds too. The other problem is we put guards on there, but they fill full of bees, and the bees actually pop them off of there. The wasps build nests in them, and it busts the squirrel guards off. So even though we put them up, sometimes they get overtaken by wasps and come down.
The critters are banding together.
They are. They're out for each other. I guess.
Reclaiming the land.
So on the first page that I gave you, it should be a very small print. It looks something like this. That was the first concept drawing of the commercial street project. As you can see, it went all the way to just past the bridge down here to 6th Street. Unfortunately, with the funds we have, we're not going to make it that far. So if you go to the next page, this is probably more realistic. We decided to go with the commercial district just so that it didn't affect the residentials right off the bat, and they kind of see what's coming in the next phase. Because we will apply for this grant again in the next year to see if we can finish this project. So this is where it'll start. You can see it takes and straightens out that corner significantly, and I gave you a blown up of what that corner looks like after it's done. Theoretically, that's what it should look like when it's done. This will narrow that road up quite a bit. It is 65 feet wide of asphalt in most places, which is freeway width, so we're going to narrow that road up so there's a lot less expensive to maintain in the future also, because there's less pavement to maintain. But as you can see, that is the plans, and I just received these about 20 minutes ago, the newer ones I gave you. So if you have any other questions, please feel free to come in and see me. We can go over everything. We meet with them again tomorrow to kind of discuss the plans I got tonight.
Okay. So what, when you narrow the road in there, so what goes in the gap? I
The gap,
guess?
so the curb on the north side will drop down approximately 14 feet, and it'll extend the gap between the curb gutter and the sidewalk, which the new sidewalk will be replaced in there. As you can see on the plans where the purple is there, that's the sidewalk that'll all be replaced with new curb gutter. But, and it will extend, we'll extend everybody's driveways that are in there, so I think the one you're gonna see in this one probably is right there. The biggest change will be at where the old bowling alley site was. They'll bring that curb out significantly and square that road up, so it's not a weird triangle
Right.
with no direction. That'll have direction when it's done. But other than that, yeah, that curb will just move south from the north side south approximately 14 feet, just adding a bigger parkway right there at this time.
So the sidewalk's just gonna be wider?
It will be a little bit wider, yes, but there'll still be quite a gap between the curb and the sidewalk itself. It'll just be parkway that'll probably be filled in with gravel, and then the homeowners can landscape it if they see fit later. Yeah, and unfortunately, we ended up with about 1.6 million after engineering is where we're guessing, and that's probably gonna get us to, hopefully to third.
Okay. So is the engineering done then for the entire project?
No, just a third. We have pretty, I hate to say, probably 50% complete for the whole project, and then we just did a third for the rest because we realized that.
We weren't gonna get there.
And then when we go out for the grant the next time, the bridge was already engineered or the culvert, it's not even a bridge, it's considered a cement culvert. Had already been engineered back in the late 90s, so we had quite a bit go off of there, which made a big difference, and that'll help with the grant later because it is pretty much shovel ready at that point. These corners were the biggest engineering feat for the whole project.
Yeah, the rest of it's fairly straightforward except the bridge,
Yeah, except for the culvert.
culvert.
But you can see the scale has been removed, and there's a tunnel going from that scale under Matthews, so we'll meet with a structural engineer tomorrow to kind of see the best way to, we didn't know that was under there, so we'll have to see, we don't want to hurt the building by taking out the sidewalk that has a tunnel under it.
Any questions?
Very excited.
Thank you. All right.
Before we get into new business, I just want to take a moment and thank the city. This holiday season was great. Fire department was great with their fireworks. I saw a lot of people out, so thank you for your hard work there.
So
And
it's not the fire department with the fireworks, it's just the
Oh.
city.
the city, I'm sorry.
It's built in.
Bill. In my head, Bill's like all of the things. So my apologies. Thank
The
you,
fire
city.
department did help, but there is a whole slew of people who
Yeah.
helped us to shoot this show off. So
Well, thank you. It was great. I think it was well appreciated. And then also thank you to Parks and Rec for leaving the benches. I think they were a great help with the church in the park on Sunday. There was like 350 people that showed up, which was awesome. It was a great turnout and a wonderful service. And really, you didn't feel the heat until it was all done. It was great. So, I thank you before we get into business.
Okay, thank you. And yes, thank you, Bill. It was great.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. We've all had a chance to review the minutes to the last meeting. And
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we approve minutes as submitted for our last meeting.
I'll second.
it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Okay, and has the Finance Committee had a chance to review the bills?
Yes, we have, Mr. Mayor. We reviewed the warrants and checked off and kind of reviewed them against our detail, and we're wanting to go through and make a motion to submit the bills for payment and have the mayor sign.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Von Redhorst,
Yes.
Hoag,
Yes.
Blackwell.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you. And there's no unfinished business. So we're going to start off new business with a public hearing on the historical preservation request for rezone. This is on the advice of our attorney, that from now on, whenever the City Council is considering a rezone, that we have not only a public hearing for the planning and zoning, but also for the City Council, so that in case there's any new material, we can ask questions and that sort of thing. So, opening this hearing for the rezone, and is there anybody who would like to speak for the positive comments?
Let him present first.
Oh, yes, yes. Tony, would you like to present the case?
Tony Edmondson, 598 Pioneer Road here in Weiser. I'm presenting on behalf of both the Historic Preservation Commission as well as the property owners involved and the neighbors as well. I thought for the benefit of those in the audience and for the public record, it would probably be a good thing just to read into the record the little sheet that the Preservation Commission prepared and was considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So if you'll bear with a few minutes of labored talk. So the narrative, or excuse me, the authority for the Weiser Historic Preservation Commission bringing this to you was established by ordinance in 1987, and we met continuously through the years following the guidelines and objectives defined in Title IV, Chapter 6 of Weiser City Code. That's the document that created us. Among other powers, duties, and responsibilities spelled out, we're directed to, quote, conduct a survey of historic properties, make recommendations in the planning processes undertaken by the county, the city, the state, or the federal government, and agencies of these entities, and recommend ordinances and otherwise provide information for the purposes of historic preservation in the city. It is in this capacity that we're bringing this request before the Weiser Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the City Council to consider and recommend approval. Additionally, the recently adopted Weiser Comprehensive Plan states in Chapter 2, Special Areas and Sites section, that we should focus on identifying and inventorying certain assets within the community to ensure that they are given appropriate consideration with respect to building and development. Goal 2D states enhance and maintain the quality and contributions of the city's special areas and sites through preservation and smart management. Objective 2D1 states evaluate additional sites and historical areas to be included on the National Register of Historic Places. And policy 2D1B states evaluate existing design review guidelines for development that is proposed in the proximity of historic places. So that gives you all the legal background. One of the most intact and historical residential neighborhoods in Weiser exists just west of downtown, encompassing sections of West Idaho, West Main, West Court, and West Liberty Streets. Many, if not most, of Weiser's National Register listed residential properties are in this neighborhood. The continuous and ongoing residential use of these properties both contribute to and protect their ongoing historic value, both in context and in character. This further enhances their potential as a future historic district. When that happens, who knows? But our job is to look to the future and to protect for the future. So far as we can tell, these neighborhoods have been assigned residential zoning since Weiser adopted land use ordinances way back when. We believe that properties within the block identified in this request were originally zoned A residential, like the residential properties surrounding them. For some unknown reason, they were later rezoned to C commercial. Research has been unable to determine when this change occurred, but at one time a property management business operated out of one of these residences. That use ceased years ago, and the property reverted back to residential use and remains so today. When the Historic Preservation Commission reached out to the affected property owners to pull their interest in rezoning back to A residential, many or all were unaware their property was zoned anything but residential. What alarmed both they and the Commission most is that there are no defined commercial uses listed under C designation, which is how these properties are currently zoned. Unlike C1, C2, and C3, which spell out what is and what is not allowed, C is open for debate. When we brought this anomaly to the attention of our former city clerk and asked for clarification of use within this zoning classification, we were told anything which has existed before is allowed. You can imagine that might be a little discomforting to some of the residential property owners there. East Main Street from downtown to Highway 95 contains several examples of the compromise which comes from allowing mixed or commercial uses within a historically residential neighborhood. Though a number of our historic homes on East Main Street have been recently restored and again reflect the pride and value of our historic heritage, those converted to businesses have installed illuminated signage, asphalt parking lots, and added other commercial features that degrade both the historic and residential character of that street. Say nothing of the hours that they operate in an otherwise residential neighborhood. Additionally, allowing commercial uses in established residential streetscapes compromise and undermines the economic vitality that should be channeled into our downtown central business district, instead of competing with revitalization efforts such as our recent Main Street program currently under development for our downtown. So we went on to propose that, the Historic Preservation Commission priority was to educate the affected property owners and get their support for rezoning their property back to A residential. Of the 6 residential properties proposed for rezone back to residential use, 4, which we identified, have signed letters of support attached to this request. A 5th property owner gave verbal support but never returned his signed letter before they moved to McCall. And the 6th property owner is a widow who employs a property manager to whom we spoke and agreed to notify the owner of our proposal. No opposition has been received from them since. Additionally, we solicited neighboring property owners for their support or opposition, and all who responded, identified as 1 through 13, so a total of 13 additional property owners, provided signed letters of support attached to this request. We have encountered no opposition to this proposal. These property owners understand that a rezone back to A will not affect their current or ongoing use nor change their taxation status. Rather, they're motivated to protect the residential and historic integrity of their neighborhood from unrestricted commercial uses, which should be channeled to our central business district. The affected property owners and your Historic Preservation Commission request your support for this rezoning. So, in a couple of things, follow-up thoughts I wanted to share. But first I wanted to read maybe a little section from, this is a little republished book that Union Pacific produced about 100 years ago, and they probably produced them for a number of towns along their right-of-way. But this is the one they produced for Weiser, and we've reproduced that actually, and it's on display now in our depot. But the opening page to it, I'm going to read from. Questions and answers about Weiser. There are numerous people in the East who would come to the West if they but knew where to go without it's kind of written a little old-fashioned, where to go without too great an expenditure of money in looking for a proper location in the vast country called the West. It is the purpose of this little booklet to set forth plainly and simply the facts of southern Idaho in general and of the Weiser Valley in particular, in order that the tourist and homeseeker may not blindly pass on through that very place that he has pictured in his imagination, but vainly seeks to find in reality. Ignorant of Weiser and its opportunities, he would, in all probability, purchase a through ticket, and unless Providence intervened, he would pass by without so much as a suspicion that there was a city and a country so rich in natural resources, so attractive in its setting, and with so great advantages for homemaking that any trip to the Pacific coast, either for sightseeing or homeseeking, would be incomplete if Weiser were omitted from the itinerary. So that kind of gives you a little history of why we're here before you now. And here's the additional thoughts I'd like to close with. The Idaho legislature long ago recognized the value of historic properties and the need to protect them by creating a statute enabling cities and counties to establish historic preservation commissions. Weiser's commission is one of 40 throughout Idaho, which include the city of Cambridge as well as Washington County. There's a reason for this, which is my second point. Our proposal isn't just predicated on what these property owners might want or what our commission is empowered to recommend. Perhaps most importantly of all, it's what we feel best serves the economic and cultural vitality of our community, as envisioned in our comprehensive plan and apparently in this little book. If you'll indulge me for just a minute, okay, that's when I was going to read this, so I'm past that. So more than 100 years later, these virtues, I should have come better prepared. These virtues remain and now also provide us with an historic and cultural legacy that further adds to our economic vitality if we choose not to squander them through indifferent or insensitive zoning. So on behalf of the many residents in this historic neighborhood, the nonprofit Weiser Architectural Preservation Committee and your Historic Preservation Commission, we're requesting that you approve this zoning change application.
Tony, do you have any idea of the resident, first of all, are all the properties under consideration currently being used for residential
Yes.
purposes? And do you have any idea approximately when those structures were built?
Most of them probably, you guys can help, but probably around 1900, I would say. Yeah. You know, the west side, Stephen Sherry's house is the first on that edition, 1890, but most of the others followed later that decade.
Okay, so it's likely they predate any zoning
Well,
at all.
Idaho didn't have zoning until the 70s. So yeah, it happened way after, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the public in support of this?
Who can outweigh the other?
Just state your name and address, please.
Okay, Sherry Clausen, 206 West Court Street. So I just wanted to mention that when you meet people, the first thing they say when they find out you're from Weiser, oh, there are so many beautiful homes there. And years ago when we were working on a renovation project for Weiser and we surveyed our citizens, one of the things that they said was most important to them was the historic nature of our town. And being involved with preservation for a lot of years, it feels like, you know, you spend a lot of time kind of battling, you know? And that's okay, but if you lose the battle, you know, you don't really get another chance. So it's really important to us, of course, that we help keep the nature of this neighborhood historic. And we feel like with commercial zoning, there could be so many different things that would really affect the nature of the whole neighborhood. So the neighborhood in question is behind the post office, right? It's that whole block behind the post office. And as Tony mentioned, and when we have decided to do historic walking tours, you know, where do we find the heaviest concentration where everyone would be able to walk to easily? It's in this neighborhood. So, you know, we hope that you will agree that this is an asset for our community that should be protected. And in my opinion, I think that this rezone was probably done for one property. It should have been like a temporary zoning for the one property rather than just rezoning the whole block. I feel like you would be correcting a mistake that was made by rezoning this back to residential. And thank you for your consideration.
Are there any other proponents? Okay. Are there any, yes?
Yes, I'd like to speak a moment about it.
Okay, as a proponent? As a proponent?
Yes, Wes Higgins, President, Snake River Heritage Center, Paddock Avenue. And yes, I agree that we need to be careful how
What's your
some of these
address?
areas, I'm sorry,
What is your address? What is your address, Wes?
I'm sorry. I was just affirming what these were saying.
Where do you live?
Oh, where do I live? I don't live in Weiser. I
That's
live,
fine.
okay, I live 1585 Highway 95, Weiser, Idaho. Okay, not inside. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I just want to affirm that, yeah, I've seen a lot of zoning problems over the years, and I think we have to be real careful that you know, a residential area should be zoned residential. And we, you know, over on State Street, we have, you know, some beautiful homes. We also have businesses all along that, you know, coming in there. And homes have been removed over the years to put those businesses in. So, and I just support what they are doing here.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Snake River Heritage Center.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents? Okay. Is there anyone who'd like to offer neutral comments? Going once? All right, is there anyone who is opposed to this? Then there needs to be no rebuttal, and so this hearing is closed. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is to consider the historic preservation request for rezoning.
And can I just add real quick, and I apologize for not putting it in the item itself. In the motion, it needs, if there is a motion, it needs to include zoning C2 A1 residential.
Okay,
It needs to be defined in the motion.
C to A1.
Just C2 A1 residential.
Well, Mayor, it seems to me that regardless of what the zoning, how the zoning ended up being, the use of these properties has been almost from before Weiser was a community, residential. And they've got almost total support from the property owners, from the surrounding property owners. And to me, this is pretty clear.
And so,
So, unless anybody else has anything to say,
Larry.
Mayor, I move to, for approval of the request to change the zoning from C to A1.
My second?
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hoag,
Yes.
Blackwell,
Yes.
Von Redhorst,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Next is, on the agenda, is discussion for the fiscal year 2025 budget. And Mike,
So the budget that I sent you had all the changes that we discussed during the first meeting. I fixed the one that you had a question on, Larry, on the
Okay.
Sarita. That was my bad, wrong number. But other
I'm
than
sure
that,
Sarita
we
would have.
really liked that, yeah. So that was the Sarita, we did up the Sarita, and I added the 5,000 back to each one that the chief had requested. So I just represented it as it is with the 5% for the sewer and water increase rates are included in this, to the best that we could predict at this time. Other than that was about the only changes.
there was one change in the dispatch. They had requested about a $30,000 increase. We did some checking. We would be the only ones participating in that increase. And also there's a logistical problem in that our contract is from October 1st to September 30th. But in order to change the contract, we'd have to dissolve that contract, and the deadline for doing that in any year is March 1st. And so, met with the sheriff today and went over that and a few other issues with it, and decided that we would take a look at it at next year. But I stressed to him that the city would be much more amenable to it if it was spread out to all the entities that are provided the service. And so that's where we left it. Am I leaving anything out, Natasha?
No.
And those amounts will be reflected in line 64 in the police, streets, water, sewer, garbage, and electric. You'll see in line 64 we'll have some changes, probably in your next budget, because we just did this today. So the next one, and it wasn't very whole lot. Actually, it went down significantly.
Yeah. So instead of a $30,000 increase, we'd be looking at a little over $3,000.
And that's in addition to the 3% that.
No.
That's
just
that.
That
Okay.
is the 3%.
That is, so that's, isn't that what our
37.
original agreement was?
Yes.
Was
Yeah, exactly.
3%?
So when you get your budget though, it's gonna look a little more because we reabsorbed the fire department's amount back throughout the budget too. So it was almost 6 on every department, like 6.5. That's what it came out to. That was the $4,500 that the fire department was paying that we reabsorbed throughout the budget, which is still in the general fund, it's just in a different place.
So where we contracted with the rural fire department to provide our fire service, would that, I noticed a couple places on here it is showing our Weiser, the cost of service here, the Weiser Fire, isn't that part of the
Well,
rural numbers?
That was one of the things we.
Okay.
They added the number of calls for Weiser Fire as if Weiser Fire still existed and wanted to charge us for that. And we explained to them that, number one, when this contract was set up, we did have a fire department, and those calls were included in that amount. Number two is, so separating that out is an addition to what we're already paying for. And also, just like you said, we contracted that out to Weiser Rural, but Weiser Rural isn't being charged anything for dispatch, nor is the ambulance, nor is any of the other entities there. So it's just Weiser. And we went over the logic of that some, but we weren't able to reach an agreement on that. But that's for discussion that we'll have this next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, yeah, because that doesn't make
Right.
too much sense.
No.
Right, and so that's where we're at. So we're pulling it back to the 3%.
So but like electrical or something like that, or?
They do use the dispatch service. I mean, if they need to, it's available to them, so they do pay a small portion of it.
Okay.
As well as the other.
Right, because it's pretty much, if anything happened at my house, I'd probably call 911. Whether it was,
If a squirrel committed suicide.
So that's one thing, when they do have a fire, streets and power and water, everybody will be dispatched through them for that. They will contact everybody, so
okay.
that's where they
That
get
makes
the parts.
sense.
Were we able to get clarification out when we had our initial budget meeting on the magic percentage of before we have to?
Whether it was 5% and
5%
above or 5% and
above,
below, or.
Yeah, like, did we get clarification on that?
It's 5% we can do, but when we're taking the public hearing anyway, it's not gonna.
Sure, I'm just curious.
We
for
can do
education.
5% without going to.
Up
a
to
public
5%,
hearing, you know,
okay,
you can do
interesting,
5%.
okay.
but we're going to have a public hearing anyway.
As we should, absolutely. I was just curious if we actually figured out what that was, because it was a question.
Yep. Any other questions? Okay.
No, thank you.
Moving on. Next item is to authorize the mayor to sign resolution number 691 for the use of 1% of Forgone.
So this is what we already discussed at the previous budget hearing. We just needed to know we were moving forward with that and assign it a resolution number. So the resolution just,
691.
Resolution 691 just identifies that it is a resolution using 1% of the foregone.
Do we need to read that resolution number in, or can we?
It's ordinances. You can just do
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we authorize the mayor to sign resolution 691 for the use of 1% of Forgone.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Von Redhorst,
Yes.
Blackwell,
Yes.
Hoag,
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed, and I am signing.
That is what you call immediate action.
Not even a stamp.
Next item is to authorize the mayor to sign the Walker Addendum for prosecution services. And what this is that we're in a bit of a flux right now with prosecution services for our misdemeanor items. We contract that out, just like we do our attorney services for the city. And we've been using Walker Law. And we had a 1-year contract that expires October 1st. This is a 3-month extension. This will allow us to go to the end of the year. The person within Walker Law is probably going someplace else, but may not. And so this just kind of leaves our options open for right now. And then we'll decide later on where to go for those services.
The transitional
Yes.
opportunity.
Yep.
Great.
Same pay rate,
Same,
same everything.
yeah, okay.
I would move that we authorize the mayor to sign the Walker Addendum.
I second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Von Redhorst,
Yes.
Blackwell,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Hoag.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I am signing this. Trying to be efficient. Okay, the next is to authorize the mayor to sign the Caldwell MPE transfer. And what this is about, probably Natasha or Brad can explain it better than I can.
That's all you do.
The bus. So what this is at a federal level, the airport is given allotted $150,000 a year for projects. We are able to bank that money for up to 4 years. At the end of that 4 years, which would be on the cusp of that 5th year, anything left over is either gonna go back to the feds or can be transferred to another municipality that has a project that their money didn't cover. So the city of Weiser is gonna lose it no matter what. So if we're gonna lose it and another municipality can use it, we just do a transfer. We have been transferred money in this manner many times when our project money didn't cover a project. So we don't choose who it goes to. It's just laterally transferred and to cover part of their project.
But we have in here that it goes to
Caldwell.
I think it's $18,000.
Yes.
$18,225. Any questions or comments?
And this is just because we didn't have a project to
No.
finish it off.
No, and moving forward, the the 600,000 that 4 years that is banked, we will use towards, when Sterling mentioned the resurfacing.
The taxiway,
The
being
taxiway.
resurfaced, will
Okay.
take the
Yeah.
next fund, yeah. But
Yeah.
that's a project that will happen a year from now, so it'd be too late to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know in our airport committee meeting that we had, the airport is amazing what they've done. Like, they have been so frugal with their number, and they truly have a beautiful facility. And so they have done all their projects except for the taxi runway, and because that's such a big cost, they're waiting for the next chunk to come in. So, yeah.
Yeah, really, if you were to go out and take a look at our airport and compare it to other towns around, it's a first-class operation.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we're very lucky.
We're doing great.
Any other discussion or comments? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we authorize the mayor to sign the Caldwell NPE transfer for the remainder of those funds.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Von Redhorst,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Poe,
Yes.
Blackwell.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you. And rather than take a chance on signing the wrong spot, I'm going to hold off on that one.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Next is authorization for the mayor to sign a letter supporting the Helper Act. And what this act is, it's some potential legislation to help first responders, firemen, policemen.
Teachers.
Teachers, yes, teachers.
Hell, this was 10 years ago.
To buy their first home. And so, given that there's a housing shortage, given that first responders are critical to any community, and retaining people in town housing is critical for that. I'd like your permission to sign this letter in support of this proposed legislation.
So I've got a couple questions about the legislation. I did take a little bit of time to try and find stuff online,
Okay.
but very little.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot about it.
Okay, so as I understand it, it provides for 100% financing of if it's your first home.
Right.
And that there is no monthly mortgage insurance payment. But I did see where there is a one-time upfront mortgage insurance payment, but I didn't see how much.
If I remember off the top of my head, it's 3%.
Okay. So, I'd be interested in knowing what I guess how it works. What's the budget for it, and how are they proposing to pay for it? Because it's not money out front, because a lender will be provided. Is it a guarantee program?
It's basically a guarantee program, the way I understand it. That's what the mortgage insurance is for. Okay, and so my understanding is that it would work like an FHA loan. With an FHA loan, you have 3% down and then buy the mortgage insurance and pay for it until it gets paid down to 80%. On this, there is no down payment. You simply buy the 3% mortgage insurance up front, and it guarantees the loan for the life of the loan.
Okay, so I'm assuming there are mortgage insurance companies that are okay with that.
That's what I'm assuming also. It could be backed by the federal government, I don't know. I haven't seen the legislation itself.
Okay. I don't know, certainly we need to try and support the people that this program is earmarked from. the only I guess the reservation I have is that I remember back in 2007, 2008, when the real estate market collapsed, it was because, to a great extent, there were loan programs that got people approved for loans that they probably shouldn't have been. And my fear is that this is a continuation of that. And what happens, and what did happen, was the very people we were trying to support by making these funds available are the ones that, if there is a market correction, they're the very ones that are hurt the worst by that, because they end up being buried in their house with a higher mortgage payment, where, you know, if I've owned my home for 15 years and I have, you know, 40% equity, and there's a 10% market correction, then it makes me sad, because my house is not you know, worth as much, but I still have equity to play with. I still have, you know, the ability to sell and get it out. If I finance 100% up front, and then there's a 10% market correction, then I'm like, and that's precisely what happened before, then I'm like in trouble, and I'm, you know, again, I'm most vulnerable to that.
And I would see that a bit differently. Number one, there isn't the equity in there to lose. Okay. Number two, I think the 2008 situation was a lot more complex than just that. You know, I agree that there were loans that should not have been made. There were loans that were being made that there was no verification on income. There was no due diligence on the loans, and there was no penalty for having a substandard loan. And so many loans were being made that should not have. From what I understand, on this, one of the tidbits that I picked up on was that there would be counseling on how to manage your finances, how to take care of a house, how to, you know, what to look for. And also, it would be subject to the standard due diligence on the part of the borrower and the lender.
So debt to income
Exactly.
calculation.
Right.
Are you aware of any changes from you know, what we would normally expect? Are they allowed a higher debt ratio than?
That I'm not aware of.
Okay.
I would hope not.
Yeah, because that's
That's one of the red flags. Yeah.
So this says, create a first-time home buyer home loan program under the Federal Housing Administration, so it's part of FHA. And then it also says, eliminate a monthly mortgage insurance payment, but require an upfront mortgage insurance premium determined by the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development to ensure the solvency of the program, and require the program to be reauthorized after 5 years.
So I guess well, I guess it you know, the people that it will help, it doesn't help all the people in that category, because if you already own a home, is that right? It's for first-time
First-time
homeowner.
home buyer.
Right.
I think from an educator standpoint, you know, one of the biggest issues that we have is getting people interested in taking on that career. And I think we see the same with our first responders, our police force, our paramedics. You know, your entry level pay in any of those industries is not enough to buy a house. You know, my brother just became a police officer in Beaverton, and although he makes more than me, it is not enough for him to buy a house in Portland. And so I can see the need for something like this. I certainly wish I had it 10 years ago. That would have greatly helped me as an educator. But I think the government recognizes that there's a shortfall in people entering into these career fields, and that they are vital and necessary, and so it's a way to try to encourage and attract and dangle a carrot in hopes that people will bite and fall for, not fall, but strike that from the record, that's not what I meant. But buy into it and then take a chance at making it a career, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
probably, you know.
It's an encouragement.
Well, like most households, now it takes two incomes, you know, so
Yeah.
it's not just.
McCall, for example, McCall School District, their teachers could not afford any housing in McCall. And so the McCall School District actually had to purchase their own housing to provide for their teachers. And there's a lot of complexities that come into that, because there's some Idaho statutes that are really, that's an iffy thing to do, and it's a big risky move for a school district. And it really is not possible for school districts across the state to do that. So this is a way that nationally we could look at and hopefully help our
So,
teachers.
plus two, I'm not thinking that,
Mary,
you know,
if you could speak into the mic to make sure we can.
Okay. Also, I don't think that, you know, this one program would be enough to crash the market, you know, if it was strong there then.
so it's actually very similar to what's already available under the, where's the Idaho Housing?
FHA,
Yes.
yeah.
Except that you have to pay the mortgage insurance on top of your payment.
Right.
Yeah.
And what is it, 3% down?
Yeah.
And that program's been, well, that's how I bought my first house, that's how long it's been.
How about mine? Yeah.
Would you like to make a motion?
I would love to, if there's no further discussion. Mr. Mayor, I motion that we allow you to sign for the helper endorsement letter.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
All opposed? The other document bites the dust. Okay. And,
Cal, you got a whole bunch of stuff to sign.
yeah,
It's a busy day.
accept and authorize the mayor to sign the ITD Weiser Transportation Plan. Mike, would you like to talk about this?
So our transportation plan was, the first one that we still have in place was done in 2002 and has been updated every 5 years. Once you get out to a 20-year mark, it's time to start looking at redoing the whole thing, because as we know, things have changed significantly in the last 22 years. We went out for a grant to do this, and usually these plan grants are 50-50 match. We did not get that grant, so we reapplied for the ITD grant, which is federally funded, and it has a 7.34% match, which is much better. On that note, we were selected to be a pilot program to go into this, so they will do what they call a LiDAR. We still have to pay the match, but they will LiDAR the whole city. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what that is, but ITD just did their whole route. We would be the first town in Idaho to do this, and we'd be the pilot for it. So they gave us a significantly amount more money. We asked for 120,000. I think we got
255.
55, yeah.
And so tell them what the advantages of having it LiDAR.
So the advantage of LiDAR is it will call out everywhere there is, even up to like a piece of curb that's moved. We'll be able to find that. You can call that out. It'll show you where there is no sidewalk, where the sidewalk is bad, every sign, every crosswalk, storm grate. It's an amazing deal. We did a demo on it. We can measure like the fall of a curb line from in the office without going out and shooting it. Everything's within a ½ an inch, which is better than survey grade. I mean, it's amazing stuff. It'll look like the Google car, very similar, and it just drives every street in town and maps the whole town. There's millions of data points it collects. Maybe even, like, cities are in the multi-billions of data points. It is very interesting. We've messed around with the states to kind of see how it works, and Ron and I both agree that this is way to go. And if we wouldn't have, we would have been paying 50,000 to do just the basic, where this is, we're gonna cap out at about 19,000, which is
I was
much.
gonna say, did we budget for the 50% match?
We were going to, yeah, we pulled out when I knew we got this grant, so we put in we're about 20,000 there we have.
Well, I could do a quick calculation in my head and say that 19's better than 50.
Yes, and this is a way, this is a way more in-depth study.
D11s, man, I tell ya. They train them.
We're pretty excited to do this actually, so I'd like to get permission to go forward and sign this agreement.
Before they change their mind.
Actually, yes, so we have to pay $2,000 right now to hold
Yeah,
this
our down
money
payment.
until October 1, so we are budgeted to go forward with it. So that's what we would do, is pay the $2,000 as soon as we agree to this. And we do have the funds for that.
So then, just as a reminder, in the motion, we had discussed and talked about if there was something that the mayor needed to sign and authorize, that there would be multiple signings that needed to happen over the project, that the motion include that he can sign anything moving forward with updates from city staff. So we don't have to hold up the project. If something needs to be done, we don't have to say, well, we'll put it on next month's agenda and prolong the process 6 weeks. So
Okay.
then we would always just update the council of anything moving forward that the mayor did sign.
But we're talking about 20 grand altogether.
We would be all in it, yeah, 7.34% of 255,000, 20,000. And I don't think we'll go that high.
Okay.
The other thing is this is, with this being so new, it may be fluid and changes a lot as we go, is why especially I'm asking for an available sign, so we're not holding up the project.
Okay. Mayor, do I need to read this top part about what all the numbers and,
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
okay. I move to approve the state and the local agreement for the Weiser Transportation Plan as written, authorize the mayor to sign it, and also authorize the mayor to sign any amendments to the plan going forward.
A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Blackwell,
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Hope,
Yes.
Von Brettholz.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There we go. And another authorization for the mayor to sign CARES Park Grant request for funds. And Natasha,
Yes.
would you help us out on this?
I think Mike can actually better than I can. Sorry.
Maybe.
Mayor.
This is just the first request for payment towards doing the park equipment with install, the new install. So when we do this, what happens is we have to okay we pay it and then they reimburse us, so this just authorizes that to start making those payments.
And what this would be making payment on is the project setup, the environmental review, project monitoring, labor monitoring, financial management, and civil rights. Those are all things that in the proposed packet for the exhibit that we chose, this was all part of that. So this is all stuff that has been done so far, and we just need to make the payment to move forward.
Do we need to specify the total amount in this approval? The
Yes.
$10,890?
Yes, thank you.
I move that we authorize the mayor to sign a CARES Park grant request for funds in the dollar amount of $10,890.
My second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Hope,
Yes.
Blackwell,
Yes.
Von Brettholz.
Yes.
Okay. Motion pass. Oh, yes.
I forgot, when we was talking about Commercial Street, I wanted to update everybody. If this all comes together, we will have a bid package out before the end of, probably the next 2 weeks. So we may have a contract to approve in the next, to get this project actually shovel moving. And I just want to let you guys know that before.
Last but definitely not least.
What's that?
Last but definitely not least.
Mr. Mayor, I would entertain a motion to.
You entertain it?
Oh, I guess not. Recess.
Okay.
No,
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Adjourn, not recess.
Adjourn.
I don't
We're
know.
not coming back.
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.